Hello, and welcome to the Accountability Coach podcast, where we discuss proven business success principles related to helping you make more money and work less so you can enjoy having your ideal business and your ideal life. This is Ann Bachrach. Today, we have a special guest with us who's going to share her very valuable insight and ideas about how to be even more mindful so that we can be in charge of our mindset and beliefs instead of them being in charge of us. Madelaine Weiss is a licensed psychotherapist and a board certified executive career life coach with an MBA. She is a former mental health practice director, corporate chief organizational development officer, and educational resource program associate director at Harvard Medical School. And she is a best-selling author of the book Getting to Great: 5-Step Strategy for Work and Life. Well, welcome, Madelaine. I really appreciate you joining us.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Ann.
Well, I like to get right into the meat of what we're going to be talking about. So I want to start with, however, maybe a bigger general question as it relates to the title of your book, Getting to Great. Help us understand and explain what getting to great really means to us as business owners and how we can get to great.
One day I said to myself, your clients are doing amazing. What are you doing with them? Because they were all so different, one from another. And I have such a diverse background in training and expertise in a variety of different areas. So there's no telling what tool I could pull out at any given moment. So I laid out all of my cases and I looked at them and I thought, what do they have in common? And what I found was this sort of 5-step strategy or process that every one of them, no matter how different they were one from the other, every one of them seemed to be going through to get from where they were, which was kind of meh, to really feeling great about their lives. So I was delighted, of course, to find that it worked itself into the acronym GREAT. So every one of those letters stands for a part of that process.
So let's go through actually the acronym, Madelaine, if you wouldn't mind. Let's talk about each one of those.
I would be happy to. So usually when people come to me, they don't like explicitly say, I would like to have a really great life. Usually, just something's just not working. And somehow they found the energy and the wisdom to reach out. And so the G is for grounding. I hold this space for them, and that space is being grounded in the belief that actually they really can have a really great life and that they have everything they need to get them there. And I know this because I see it over and over and over again, but they don't know that until they begin to experience it. No one can tell you that and you believe it just because they said so. And you shouldn't believe it just because they said so. But so I hold that for them until they can step into that space and start seeing things happening so they can own it and run with it on their own. The first line of the book is, a great life depends on a great fit between who we are and the environments in which we work and live. And you can hear, even though that's my sentence, the concept came more from Darwin over like 150 years ago, but it applies as much today as ever before. And so the R, if a great life depends on the fit with who we are, we need to recognize R for recognize who we are, not who someone else said we should be, or who maybe even we always thought we should be, but just the true essence of what our interests and our values and our dreams and our aspirations, our strengths, our weaknesses, just who we really are. And when that's a little more under the belt, then we can go exploring. A lot of us are just so limited in what we think, what we believe is possible for us. But there's a great big world out there with all kinds of possibilities that maybe we did consider before and thought, nah, or maybe never even occurred to us. So the E is for this period of exploring. Do I want to go to graduate school? Do I want to start my own business? If I started my own business already, do I want to expand it? Or, so just to go exploring all these different possibilities that maybe didn't even occur before or didn't seem possible before. But that's a bit of a dreamland. And William James said that action doesn't guarantee happiness, but there's no happiness without it. So the A is for action. Now, I'm careful with people that we use something called the Goldilocks principle. So the action steps that people sort of design at the end of every session with me, there will be some sort of action step to bring to life this dream, to turn this dream into a real plan. But if the steps are too big, then people are overwhelmed by them and they just shut down and don't do anything. And that's a lot of where your procrastination can come from. And so you want them not so big that they overwhelm and shut you down, but also we need to excite the learning and motivational centers in the brain. So the steps have to feel significant and exciting enough to the brain to turn those centers on, to keep you taking one step after another step after another step, because the brain's noticing and it feels good. So not too big, not too little, just right. And then the final letter, the T, is for either, and you can pick whichever one would suit you at any given time, and that can change, either sort of tending or tackling or taming the normal, natural, inherent resistance to change that happens when we're actually making a difference in our lives, even and especially a positive difference in our lives. I was just talking to a client yesterday who just took a job as chief of staff at a company that she's feeling pretty good about. And it's a whole new role for her that she's ascended to. And we had this conversation where when people are going someplace where they haven't been before, it's normal and natural to feel anxiety. But the minute we start to feel anxiety, we think it's a problem, like something's wrong. And that's part of what people get limited by. But it doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything wrong. In fact, something might be wonderful. But because it's new, humans cling to their comfort zone. So when we step out of our comfort zone, and there's a study out of Yale that says that optimal learning takes place 70% outside of the comfort zone. So outside of the comfort zone is a great place to be, but it's anxiety provoking. And we just need to be careful to know the difference between a signal that really is protecting us from harm and a signal that is just saying, this is new and it's making you nervous. It's fine. I heard somebody say something like every single one of us has already survived everything we've already been through. And I just found that stunning to think of that. We've already made it through everything.
It is something definitely to think about when you really put it that way, because we've been through a lot of things. So who's to say we haven't already been through it and we're just going through it again, but it looks a little different maybe this time. And so that's why you think it's different, therefore getting uncomfortable. And I always say, successful people are comfortable with being uncomfortable all the time. That's how they get to be successful.
That's right.
So we all can learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah. I was telling a different client the other day when we were talking, I said, when you do this, like on the front end of it, and you have that anxiety, now that you're more aware of all of this, when you get through this knothole, you're going to remember that you felt this way before the next time that happens. And if you keep growing and keep succeeding, it is going to happen again. But because of all this awareness you have now, you will be able to say to yourself, oh, yeah, I remember feeling this way before. And I put one foot in front of the other and I made it. So, yeah.
Now, when talking about limiting beliefs, so the grounding is really, you said belief, and belief is one of my very favorite words. So
Mm,
when talking about limiting beliefs, you say that all beliefs actually are limited. So
I
we
do.
have to be very mindful that we're in charge of them instead of them being in charge of us.
I do
So
say that.
yes,
I
you
do.
do. So, how do we get in charge of our beliefs in order for them to help us?
Okay, I want to put this in a perspective that I love. So I'm going to share this with you, and you can tell me whether you do or don't like it too. Out there in the universe, there are 6 times 70 million zeros, bits of information. The human senses take in 11 million of the 6 times 70 million bits. I can't even say that. So the human senses take in 11 million of those per second. Out of the 11 million that the senses send to the brain, we are aware of 50. So we're getting 50 bits of information out of 6 times 70 million zeros bits of information. And when I consider that, it makes me feel like anybody who thinks they know anything is sorely mistaken. And that's like the good news and the bad news, because when we realize that there's no such thing as perfect information, humans don't have access to it, and I doubt we ever will, then we realize that decisions that we make are not be all and end all. They're points along the way, and we see what happens as a consequence of one decision or another. And we might want to course correct based on the result of this or that. But I've seen people get so paralyzed and try to put off making a decision, waiting for this moment when it'll all become clear. And I offer those numbers so that people will understand. It's not possible to know everything we all think that we would like to know. So we have to kind of maneuver our way through it in the best way we know how. And putting it off, waiting for perfect information is just exhausting because the brain's going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth the whole time.
Okay, so how do we then get our beliefs, limited or not limited, right?
Yeah.
To a way that's actually going to serve us. So we're not going to make always the right decision, but how do we really change that choice so our beliefs are actually, we're in charge of them and they're really not in charge of us? How do we switch that?
Okay, I'll get there. I reacted when you said the right decision because I don't even know if I believe in right decision. I think we do the best we can and think of it again as not a discrete event. You know what I mean? By that, it's not a single point.
Right.
It's it's part of something that is ongoing where there is lots of opportunity to tweak. But how you get the higher brain in charge of that, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I think so, because I think that's what has to happen for us to
Hmm.
stop thinking about things we don't want to have happen and think about things that we do want to have happen. And so many times we get fixated on, I don't want this to have happen, or this is going to happen, or that's going to happen, or, this could happen, or I don't know, this might happen, instead of, what do we really want to have happen, and how can we consciously or unconsciously help manifest that, because we're focused on what we would like to have happen versus all the things that could, coulda, woulda, shoulda, might have happened, but we don't really want that world, but yet we focus on that.
So there are visualization exercises that I do with people that come out of NLP, neuro linguistic programming, where they manifest this sort of ideal image. And then there are also all kinds of other exercises where you can actually plot the course of getting from here to there. But I think a one tool that I always say it could be everybody's BFF, that the single thing that puts the higher brain in charge of all of it is this 30-second mindset reset. Is that the kind of thing that you were meaning with the
Yeah, I'd
question?
love to hear about the 30-second mindset reset. I'd love that. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So I can't show you, but I can tell you. By the way, for anyone who's going to be interested in this, on my website, you'll see a tab that says power breathing. So I call it that because it's such a powerful tool. So it's a one sheet instruction of what I'm going to tell you about now, and everyone can download that. So the idea is that there's in the sort of center area of the brain is the amygdala, which is picking up all these cues from the external environment and sending them to the brain. If the brain is integrated, what happens is when we get freaked out, and by the way, most people talk about this with the negative emotions, but I want you to hear me. I've seen people get so excited about something positive, like an investor, showed interest in them, and they get so excited that they can't think straight. So this is not just for things that we're upset about. It's for things we might be overstimulated by. So when the amygdala starts thrashing around because it's overexcited in one direction or another, it knocks the higher brain center offline. This is called the hand model of the brain. So the thumb is flailing around and it knocks all the fingers offline, meaning not in the configuration of a fist. What the exercise, the 30-second mindset reset, puts the fingers back down in touch with the amygdala. So there's this polyvagal nerve that runs from the abdomen all the way up to the brain. When you do this 30-second mindset reset, it takes it out of sympathetic nervous system, puts it it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is where you get your calm and your clarity from. So when you get your brain integrated, because you breathe like this, how I'm going to tell you for 30 seconds, the amygdala can say to the higher brain, I'm totally freaked out here. What do you think? And the higher brain can say, thank you for sharing. I got it from here. And to make that happen, Takes 30 seconds. And how that happens is it's a different kind of breathing. Singers know about it. It's also called diaphragmatic breathing. And what's different about it is that your belly, and try this and tell me whether it feels awkward or not. So your belly goes out on the in breath and it comes all the way back in on the out breath. So typically, especially when we're anxious, we fill our lungs, and that's very anxious breathing. This breathing that you want to activate that nerve to put you in a clear, calm state so you can do your very highest order thinking. The belly goes, so you fill the belly with air, not the lung. Is that making sense so far?
Totally. Got it. Love it.
Okay. So I like to close my eyes or gaze downward. And there's people always ask questions about whether you breathe in and out through your mouth or your nose. So let me answer that to the best of my ability if anyone has that question. I asked that question at the beginning of my training doing these kinds of things in breath work. And I was told by a physician who does this kind of work that when you breathe out through your mouth, they all want you to breathe in through your nose, but that when you breathe out through your mouth, you're energizing. When you breathe out through your nose, you're clearing. And this is for the clearing, to get clear, to get focused, to get calm. And so I've also read a lot of studies that say we should all be nose breathing in and out anyway, that it's the best thing for our health. So if people want to do their mouth, okay, fine. I'm just telling you why I picked in and out through the nose. I like to close my eyes or gaze downward. And we're just going to take, and I'll say when we're starting, like 3 luxurious breaths. And it's going to be in through the nose and out through the nose. Belly out. This is important. Belly out on the in breath. Belly in on the out breath. So let's just try that, okay? And when you're ready, tell me how that was for you.
Oh, that feels so good to me.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
And now you have your higher brain back online.
Woo!
Yeah.
I love this 30-second exercise.
I don't even think it takes necessarily 30 seconds. I timed it once and it
Yeah,
took
I
me
don't think it
30
does
seconds.
either.
But it's good to take like really deep, luxurious breaths. We don't want to rush it.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to rush it or you're going to not get in the right state, right? Let your higher brain take over. That's not going to happen for
You
sure.
know, there was this very young man that I was working with, and he actually had a wonderful life, but he had a very racing mind. His mind was just like racing all the time. The kinds of things that you were talking about, this and then that, and what about this, and why not that, and all. It just like this ongoing thinking, thinking, thinking. And I did this with him, and when he was finished, he just said, "Wow." It was like a psychedelic drug or something. And it's so great because it doesn't cost anything. It only takes 30 seconds, and people are busy, and a lot of people are not interested in a full meditation. But there's this. And again, I think it could be everybody's best friend.
It could be. It could be when you wake up at night with your mind racing. You could easily
Yep.
do this. It doesn't take very long. It could
Yep.
be applied to so many different aspects and timings, within our daily life that it could benefit us in so many ways.
That's right.
I
Yeah.
love it. Now, you briefly talked about in the A for great was action,
Yep.
and that when you really are turning your dream into a plan, this is sometimes where procrastination can step in to bite us, where we don't want to be bitten. So, how do you help us get over procrastination issues so that we can more quickly accelerate our results? Any thoughts on that?
Well, my general answer, and then I will apply it specifically to this, and I'll give you a case example even, is to make the unconscious conscious. Again, as you said. So you're in charge of it instead of it in charge of you. A lot of people are just driven, let's say, to procrastinate, and they're not particularly aware of it. There was a woman who was talking to me about her procrastination, which the more she sees it, she's just stunned by it, that it seems so counterproductive and unnecessary. And yet she just did it just this week on a major project. And how she defined it, how she explained it, was that her doing her life the way she does it, and that includes putting things off as much as she wants to, and if she gets it done, which she does usually. But that habit, she defined it as a habit, which I think is spot on. I try to help her understand that that's there for a good reason, that that has helped her in some way. It's a life strategy. It wouldn't be there if it hadn't helped her at all. So there's something about it. I think it makes her feel in more control of her life. Nobody's telling her what to do when she's doing things on her own time, which is deluding herself in a way once she's aware of it. But what she realized this week is that her life will be okay if she continues living it the way she's been living it. But it'll be kind of, like I said before, meh. And the thought of that horrified her. And she came out with two examples of people where she works. And one of them is living a life filled with energy and gusto and excitement and enjoyment. And the other one is doing the math thing. And she said she looks at one and she looks at the other, and she doesn't want to be like the one who's just getting by doing things that always worked but are not bringing her to a great life. And then she added, and I always was waiting for somebody to somehow fix this for me. Well, she's looking at me while she's saying that. And I said to her, well, I don't want you to be wasting your money. So if you feel ready to do something different, then we can continue. But who's doing the doing? And of course, it is she. And it just felt like an important sort of pivotal moment for her where she realized she's got the rest of her life to live, and it can be one way, which is, not terrible, but it could be so much better. And that's a decision. People don't realize, like, getting out of bed in the morning is a decision we make or take, however you like to say that. And whether she's going to have a great life or not is a decision too.
That's really an important thing because I think, we all make decisions or choices, right? Every second of every day.
Hmm.
And so do you want that decision or choice to be meh,
Yeah.
or do you want it to be something else? And so I think that's a good question to help us really realize with procrastination issues is, what do you really want here? What choice do you want to make? What decision do you want to make?
I heard somebody in a television commercial say, when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of going into the unknown, then you start moving. I remember somebody said to me once, years ago, do you see yourself sitting in that chair doing the same thing for the rest of your life? And, bringing it to consciousness, it was horrifying. Just the idea of doing the same thing, even if it was a wonderful thing for me, doing the same thing for the rest of my life. I wasn't very old at the time. It was like, God, no. I always like to say the tree wants to grow and the bird wants to fly, and so do we. And I can't tell you how many clients I've had who thought there was something terribly wrong in their life, and all it was is that they were bored because they weren't growing. It's painful to be stuck
And
unless,
that
yeah,
procrastination is holding us back then.
yeah,
It could even be somewhat of an unconscious decision, right? That's holding us back.
yeah. And couple of people recently were talking to me about what they didn't know was a fear of success. So if they didn't do this and they procrastinated on that and didn't decide on this, they could prevent the success that they were afraid of. Well, if you don't know that, you can get away with it. But when you realize that's what you're doing, it's like, holy Hannah, really?
Exactly, exactly. Any other great words of wisdom that you want to share with us related to anything that we've talked about today that could take it further for us to implement some of the things that we talked about today?
Absolutely. I want to say something about great company. That's when I was studying Advaita Vedanta, pre-Hindu tradition, believe it or not, I studied that for close to 25 years. And there's this concept, good company, I think they call it. And it's not just the people we hang out with, although it is that too, but it's the books we read, the music we listen to, kind of television that we watch. Most importantly, the thoughts in our head. What kind of company are we keeping in our head? And then, of course, um, we get to choose the people in our lives more than like when we're little kids. You know, we didn't get to choose our parents, but we sure get to choose our friends now. Good company as much as we can afford and find to fill our cups with the best there is. And I think it really makes a difference.
I
So
totally agree, Madelaine. I think that's really an important concept because a lot of times people unknowingly are holding us back. Some of
yeah,
the people that we surround ourselves with unknowingly most of the time,
yeah.
and they're helping us with the procrastination or the limiting belief and not really helping support us in a way that would serve us better. And
And
again, I'm not.
they might even mean well. Somebody was telling me about a therapist that she's been seeing who's very nice, but not challenging her at all. So people people can be she's and what's wrong with that is, she said, I go in and I do all the talking and nothing changes. And so I do think there are a lot of people who mean very well by other people, but it's not necessarily helpful. And then there are, of course, people who are conspicuously toxic and they really don't belong anyway. So, yeah, picking and choosing, as Darwin says, the world belongs to those who fit best with the environments they're in. And now we have this wonderful frontal cortex where we can use it to make decisions about creating even the environments that we live in. And this good company is all a part of that.
Good company that's going to help us and we can help them. I think that's an awesome way to end this. I
Yep.
really appreciate your very valuable time with us and all your
Thank
insight and
you.
ideas. And I know we could talk about this all day long. I know you have so much more to share that
Oh,
would be
thank
so valuable. And I really do appreciate your time today.
Me too. Thank you, Anne. That was great.
Well, my hope for our time together with Madelaine is that you got value and an idea or two that will help you be even more successful professionally and personally. Feel free to share my podcast with others as it can be found on most podcast platforms and in most English speaking countries, and of course on accountabilitycoach.com. And if you'd like to get a short daily fix from me, subscribe to the Accountability Minute, which can also be found on most podcast platforms and in most English speaking countries. And remember to subscribe to my Proven Business Success Tips and Resources blog by going to accountabilitycoach.com/blog. And always aim for what you want each and every single day. Until next time, make it a great day, today and every day. I appreciate you listening.